And here are our Concord grapes. I bought 50 packages to make 5 gallons. Some more over here, and then there, and down at this box. 50 altogether. Here's the fermenter tub and the crusher. No destemmer. Here are the pails I'm going to use to hold the must, and then eventually put the must and wine into 5 carboys. And over here we have some test equipment. This is for testing acid, total acids, titrating tape, pH meter, and a stirrer, magnetic stirrer bar. These are additives. I hesitate to call them chemicals. And same with this package right here. And now I'm going to have the boys start taking the grapes off from the stems and putting them into the crusher. And then we'll get things underway. And here we have the boys taking the berries off from the clusters, putting them in the bucket, and then we'll take that bucket and slowly put it into our crusher hopper, and the juice, the skins, the pulp will fall into our fermenter container, the red fermenter container. And as we can see here, this 7-gallon bucket is almost full with the berries of just about half of the 50 cartons. Then we're going to turn the handle, crush those grapes. And we'll see them fall into the bottom. Notice they're just crushed open, they're not squeezed to death, they're not smashed down. The skins are open. This is if you took a knife and split it. Represents probably about 2/3 of our grape. And now we're going to pick the berries off. The first thing I'm going to do, now that we have all the grapes crushed and we've added 2 gallons of water, is to protect the grapes from becoming oxidized. So John's going to take about a half a cup of juice with no skins if he can help it. A few skins won't make any difference. That's good. Then we're going to set that down, and we're going to add 1/4 teaspoon of potassium metabisulfite to keep this grape must. That's enough. That's good. That was a little more, but that's okay. Then we're going to stir that real good. with warm water, but I use this. Okay. You can set that down. And we're going to just pour that around. Now we're going to stir that in the best we can so that all the grapes and the juice are protected. So take that spoon and go to town. Next question is, do we just let the grapes sit in there for the juice to pick up a little color for about 2 hours, and then take the skins out so that the resulting wine doesn't have that strong Robusta foxy flavor? Or do we ferment the grapes skins with the must to give it better color? I may try this time to just let those skins sit in there for about 2 hours. Then scoop everything out, put everything through a cheesecloth, and take the resulting juice and test it for sugar and acid that way, even though that will result with a wine that's quite light or rosé, but perhaps a better flavor, especially since these grapes are not wine grapes. So over the next 2 hours, I'll decide what I'm going to do with that, and we'll get back to it. Okay, Paul. Okay, in this video, we're going to scoop out all of the contents of this bucket, including the grapes and the liquid. I'm going to put it into this nylon straining bag, which in this case is really a cheesecloth bag. So Paul, let's fit that over this bucket. We're going to need 2 buckets, but I'm only going to show you 1 bucket. And now John is going to try to get as much of that in there as he can. That's the idea. I'd be shocked, John, if you made a whole window.
Yeah.
Now, ordinarily, I would have put the sugar into the must and adjusted the acid before this was done. But I planned to take the skins off from the juice after 2 hours. Then I will just adjust the juice without the skins in there. We're going to leave them in 2 hours to extract some color, but not, hopefully, too much of that foxy Robusta taste. And we have to remember that when we take the bag out, we still will hopefully wind up with a calculated 5 gallons of must or thereabouts. Is that about half in there, John?
Yeah.
Okay. Now at this point, I'm just going to do that, and John and Paul, with the other bucket. But we will film that for you because you have the idea. But we will show you the other bucket when it's filled. All right. John's going to pick up the nylon straining bag, which is really a cheesecloth. He's going to hold it above the bucket a minute to let it drip a bit. And he's going to quickly put it into the tub. And we're going to squeeze it out in a few minutes. There's one. And now we're going to pick up this bucket and put it on the stand. Are you handing it in? And that's 2. And then he's going to put that juice, he's going to put this juice over here, pour it into the bucket here. And as we can all see, the juice, fortunately, picked up some color. While I wasn't filming, perhaps at least twice in the last 2 hours, I went in and squeezed the bag, and, not just the whole bag, pressing down on the whole bag, but squeezed portions of the bag to release some of the color and juice of the pulp. Now, John, you could take that bucket, please, and put it under here. There you go. There you go. And you can open that spigot, which would just be vertically, and you can get in there and press down that as hard as you can. Let's see. You can even squeeze the bag as you go too. Paul, would you like to take over one of those bags there? I'm tempted to tell you to get in there with your feet, but now we do have a press over here in the corner that I just use mostly now for decoration. It's a beautiful press, but I don't think it's called for at this time, especially with the small amount of wine we're making, just 5 gallons and a few bags of grapes. Now what we can do is release this valve down here and tip it up a little bit. And we're going to get this bag out of the way. There you go. I think we'll tip it a little more. Tip it up a little more, Paul. That's interesting. There must be something stuck in there. Yeah. Yeah. See
Like a clog.
little clog in there? There we go. We had some pulp in there, right? All right. A few grapes escaped. All right. Now let's try that again. Any luck? Now I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to close it, and we're going to just turn it around a little bit like this, and we're going to pour from here. Do you need a little towel? Okay. All right. And just be careful when we tip. You don't bang that spigot off down there. Okay, and here we go with the pour. Okay. And maybe one of you guys can just hold that bag in. Alright, now we're going to tip it back up and squeeze some more. And watch the spigot over there. And let's press a little more on these grapes. And we're going to continue that until we get just about as much juice out of it as we can without overdoing it. Because if I wind up with too much juice, and the acid is too high in the grapes, I'll have to add water that goes beyond the 5 or 6 gallon mark. And we don't want to do that. So if I need more juice later, we'll have a little bit left to squeeze. And I know I'm probably going to have to add quite a bit of water to knock down the acid levels. So we'll do one more squeezing for now. Then we'll take our acid test and sugar test and go from there. In this segment, we're going to test the sugar, the bricks, the potential alcohol. We have a hydrometer to do that for us. Paul's going to put it into the sample. And I just happen to know, because I checked it before, that it's at about 1.040, which is about 5% alcohol. It's very difficult to see there, I know, but we know what that reading is. So we're going to start adding sugar. Now, you might argue that it's better to correct the acid first, because once we add the sugar and get it just right, we may have to add a lot of water to correct the acid, and then we'd have to correct the sugar again. But we're going to go with the sugar root first this time. And here for a closer look, you can see that the sugar is at about 1.040. I know that's difficult to see. 1.040, about 5% alcohol. We're reading from the bottom of the meniscus, which is also very difficult to see. We know we have to add sugar, and that's what we're going to do right now. Now we're adding sugar slowly and retesting the sugar, the bricks, the potential alcohol. We only started with 4 cups. We're going to need quite a few others, quite a few more. But we're going to stir that well, then take another reading, and then probably add just 2 cups at a time after our initial 4 cups that we started. Now we're at the point where we're testing the TA, total acids, of the wine. I put in 25 milliliters of distilled water and 15 milliliters of wine sample, and I'm using 0.2 normality sodium hydroxide as the reagent. What we're going to do, we're going to drip that sodium hydroxide very slowly until the pH meter reads 8.2, which means the acid has reached neutrality. If the sodium hydroxide ends up on a 4, that means we have 4% acid. If it ends up on a 6, that means we have 6% acid. I know the numbers are very hard to see here. We're looking to stop this at 8.2. What's the reading now, John? 5 point, almost 6?
Yep.
Hey, notice this hasn't changed color yet. There, now it's changing color. How many above 6? How many above 6?
4. 5.5 is here. 5.8.
Okay, we're looking for about 8.2, and we're getting very close. We are at about 5 point what, John?
8.
5.8. 5.8. Stir bar. Mixing as we titrate. 7.93. It's interesting how that keeps climbing when I'm not dropping anything in. I'm going to put 1 drop in. Okay, we're looking for 8.2. 9.14. This may climb just about right. It may not. This is very close. 8.17. If I put another drop in there, I would overshoot it. 8.18. And where are we on that? 8.19. So we took out our gram scale and did a little calculation. We need 3 grams of tartaric acid to bring it up just a little bit to 6. So John's going to put that in there and stir it real well. It's also a good idea to stir it in some water or stir it in a sample of wine must. Okay, and we've just got a few more additives for tonight's work, and then all we have to do tomorrow is add the yeast. Now we're going to put in 2.5 teaspoons of yeast nutrient, and that is yeast nutrient right there, and that is food for the yeast to prevent a stuck fermentation and to have a steady fermentation. It is food for the yeast. There's 2. And a second thought, John, we can, since we only have 4.5 gallons, we'll leave out that last half. Okay? And now we're going to stir real well. And tonight's process will be over. I am going to check that sugar one more time. And now it's finally time to add the yeast. It's 24 hours after we finish preparing the must. The yeast I've used for quite some time with good luck, and a yeast that allows me to have good fruit flavor, doesn't ferment too fast, and is a safe yeast in comparison to some others. Is Lelvin RC212, and it's already cut open at the top. I'm going to add it to 50 milliliters worth of water. And I'm going to sprinkle it in, and it says to only let it set about 20 minutes. I stir it and I add about a half a teaspoon to a teaspoon worth of the must itself to get itself acclimated to the must, and to add the sugar to help it froth and become a little more active before adding it to the wine itself. Alright, it's been just about 25 minutes, and you can start to see some foaming of the yeast, some yeast multiplication, and that shows us that the yeast has been activated and ready to be put into the fermenter. And that should be just about enough. before I put the yeast in, pour the yeast in, not only to remix the ingredients, but to aerate it slightly, because in the beginning of fermentation, there is an aerobic component here where the yeast likes quite a bit of air. In secondary fermentation, there will be anaerobic, where there's hardly any air involved. Now, when I put the yeast in, I'm not going to stir the yeast. I'm just going to drizzle it over. And within 12 to 24 hours, sometimes even sooner than 12 hours, we'll notice some fermentation taking place. Usually, though, within 24 hours, you have a fairly strong fermentation go, but within 24 hours for sure you have a very active fermentation go. And as you can see, I placed a dish towel over the top because I want air to be able to get in there, but I don't want contaminants to be able to get in there. And you could also use cheesecloth, a nylon straining bag, or anything of that nature, at least during the primary fermentation.